are you? And where are you going? What do you want?
Hello and welcome to Trust and Estates Weekly. I'm your host, Kevin Bemmel, and I'm here every Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And today is kind of a special show because I get to have on the show today two of my clients, basically. Not technically not so, but they're the two heirs to an estate that I've been administrating for about an hour and a half. I'm sorry, an hour and a half. Listen to me, for about a year and a half. And oh gosh, see. First rule of podcasting, always get a good night's sleep. So I've been administrating the estate of which they're the heirs for about a year and a half now. And Max and Brianna Miraz, we've gotten to know each other over that year and a half. And I've told them this several times that they are the ideal client. I mean, they really are. Because they ask a lot of questions. And the worst thing for an administrator of an estate is to have to administrate an estate blind. And I will add that they're always polite when they ask the questions. So I have estates where people ask questions, but the underlying message of the questions is, you're such an incompetent fool. I have to ask you this thing, right? So that is not the case here. So Max, Brianna, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having us, Kevin. We appreciate it.
Yeah. So just to give the viewers just a little bit of background about the two of you, maybe take a minute or so and talk about just who you are, kind of what you were doing before this whole process started, because I think that's relevant to people who are watching. Like, you're not Rockefellers or something where you're just kind of sitting around waiting for someone to pass away, knowing that there's going to be a multi-billion-dollar wealth transfer or something like that. So talk a little bit about that, if you would.
Well, my name is Max. I graduated from the United States Military Academy from 2014. I went into the Army for a little bit, and I ended up getting out early because basically my knees gave out on me. After getting out of the Army, I tried to get into the GIS world, but at the time just wasn't possible. So I switched to IT, and I worked at the Pentagon for a little bit with the Marine Corps, and then I hopped over to Defense Logistics Agency, and I worked with them for years. And recently left that to work on the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I'm Brianna, Max's wife, as you already introduced, Kevin. My background is I graduated George Mason University. Was focusing on global affairs. Was very interested in international studies. My career did take me in the path of Department of Defense, so I have some background, several years working Department of Defense, also USAID, a little bit of State Department. And until recently, so I guess part of the background includes where the estate is coming from is Max's father. And he unexpectedly passed. It's almost coming up on 2 years now.
Yeah.
And we are inheriting an estate that was very unexpected. And so we are very fortunate and very grateful in that. But we were very overwhelmed once we found out the size of the estate. And unfortunately, which I'm sure we'll get to, I'm not trying to jump the gun here, Kevin, per se, but knowing that there was no will associated with the estate and trying to jump all of the hurdles with that. So we came from, I want to say, a very normal, everyday type working class background, thrown into a world that we had no idea about. Max certainly wasn't expecting. And so it has been an adventure, to say the least, and as we try to navigate through this process, as we are continuing to do so. But at least we're past the initial, I guess, hurdle of the craziness of, oh my gosh, what is going on? What do we need to do? It seems like everything is on fire and we have no idea what we're doing.
Yeah. So, and one of the things that I found most fascinating about this situation, at least, is so we met through your father's longtime lawyer, Michael Abramson, and so I wasn't involved when Michael made the call to let what had happened to your father, Max. One of the things I find kind of fascinating about this is you had no idea that that your father had accumulated the kind of wealth that he had, and
it was really interesting. When we showed up, I knew my dad had a little bit of money. Like I thought maybe around $1 million, $2 million. And when I was talking with Michael Aberson, he thought the same thing. And yeah, it was kind of a surprise for everybody. Like we were all blindsided.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I never got to meet your dad, but I've seen where he lived, the loft he had downtown. I've seen the house that he has in West Hollywood, and nobody would look at those and go, oh, wow, this is some fancy schmancy guy, right? He had a really cool kitchen in the loft where I understood he used to like make big Italian meals and such, but this is very middle class, kind of way of living. And I've talked with various advisors, as guests on the show, and one of the things they stress is, if someone is estate planning, they need to sort of socialize what they're doing with the beneficiaries and the heirs. And evidently, I guess that didn't happen in your case. Is that?
Yeah, he never mentioned anything about it. He kept his business very personal to him, and yeah, so I didn't know what was going on. I had no idea.
So I don't want to sort of bring up painful memories, but what was it like to get that call from Michael and realize not just that your father had passed, your father-in-law had passed, but that there was going to be this sort of big process that was going to go on? How did that impact you?
Honestly, at first when I got the call, I thought it was some kind of joke because my dad was a very strong individual. I mean, he was waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, hitting the gym every single day. So I thought he would live for quite a while longer. So originally I thought it was a joke until the realization hit that he had passed, and I kind of froze for a bit. I didn't really know what to do. Yeah, it was a very struggle that night.
Yeah, I remember he came in and it was the middle of the night and woke me up and had told me that his father had passed, and like he was saying, with the frozen state, like just like the look of shock on his face, and he was just kind of standing there like I don't even know what to do next. I mean, poor Max wanting to grieve his father, but then also knowing in the back of his mind that his father did run a business that had several employees, and this was a Sunday night going into a Monday morning. So we're saying those employees are going to show up to work the next morning and say, well, where's Mike? And what are we going to do? And so it almost felt like Max didn't get the proper time to grieve the passing, the unexpected at that passing of his father, and immediately had to think, well, there are other lives here that this is affecting as well, and a business. And so we've got to figure out what is the next step. And so, yeah, it was a struggle on several different levels, personally, and also business wise too. And I think that was the next step, was trying to figure out who did he have like a next in line of who to call if for some reason something happened with him or the business. And I think we somehow, I don't remember how we got Michael's contact information.
I think he might have called me.
Or if he called, I don't remember exactly how it came about. I think we were trying to get in touch with him And then later in the morning, because the other thing too is on the East Coast, we're 3 hours ahead of the West Coast too. So it did give us a leg up in that we had a little more morning hours before everyone started, I think, shuffling into work. But I remember us being like, we need to get in contact with Michael, knowing he was, or we had somehow found out that he was a lawyer. We were like, we think that's the best case at this point, because we have no idea. A lawyer is probably going to be the best person, especially one that was actually Michael's lawyer to figure out what the next steps are here.
Yeah. I have to, this struck me as you were talking about how, what was going on with you, Max, when you got the news that, the first thought is, oh gosh, my father has died. And then your next thought is, wait, there's all these people. Right? That is such a part, as a military guy myself, right? That's such a part of the officer's ethos. It's like, can't worry about me, have to worry about my people, right?
Mm-hmm.
For people who aren't around that mindset, it may sound a little bit weird. Right? Okay, got to put this over here. Can't really, deal with my grief. There's people showing up at the office. That whole thing. I would add though, and correct me if I'm wrong, you at least knew the two key ladies who worked with your father. You had known them, I guess, when you were a child.
Yes, I kind of grew up with them.
Okay. Yeah. So there was a connection there. It wasn't like they were total strangers. Nonetheless, the responsibility is the same. Right. So you're in touch with your father's lawyer Michael, and how did that either allay your concerns or increase your concerns? Because I can imagine it could have gone either way. Nothing against Michael. Michael's a longtime friend of mine, and I think he's a wonderful lawyer. But of course, there's all this stuff, and it's like, okay, well, since we're talking, let me dump all this out so you can sort of see what needs to happen.
Well, for me, it was at the time I didn't know that Michael was working with my father for almost 30 years. I had no idea. I was just told basically, here's his lawyer. And I was like, well, I don't know who I can trust at this point in time, because I know there's a decent amount of money involved. I was like, I just don't know who to trust. I don't know who I can lean on at this moment in time. And the other thing I was thinking about too is like, how am I going to pay for this? Mm-hmm. Because we didn't have the money to handle this. And at first there was a little bit of discussion about his retainer fee, and we're like, we can't afford the retainer fee, so what are we going to do? And we worked it out very easily.
It all worked out in the end. But yeah, I want to say that was like the financial aspect of everything, knowing, especially as we found out the size of the estate. And then it was more than we need to go to probate and deal, and that requires a probate lawyer. The bigger and the more and more that we found out, it was like, well, we need this specialist to help us and this specialist does. So like different types of lawyers and fiduciary and of course, the bigger the team grows, we're just saying like cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. And we're like, is this stuff we have to pay for up front? Because we can't do that. So there was actually a point in time where I like broke down in the kitchen crying at one point. So I was like, Max, I don't know how we're going to pay for any of this. We don't have the money for this. We're working class. We're doing the best we can with our kids. So that was like a huge concern for us in the beginning too, was of course we need Michael's help. We want to do right by the business, by the employees of the business, by us as well. And we know we need the help because we don't have the knowledge of anything. So, but at the end of the day, how can we pay for this financially? And again, everything worked out, but like that was a very big concern in the beginning. So it's as we said.
Yeah, so I mean, indeed, as I thought might be the case, at first it was like the challenges seemed to be mounting and getting greater and greater, and it's like they keep packing more rocks into your backpack, right? And I think this is one of the challenge. By the way, looking at it from my perspective, this is one of the challenges of, especially in intestate probate, is since there hasn't been any planning, no one really knows what's going to happen. And of course, probate is essentially set up to protect the estate and the heirs. And so, you know, uh, you know, people involved in that, they know as a matter of course that payment comes when the work is done, as opposed to upfront. But I wouldn't guess that there's more than, you know, a small percentage of people outside of the probate system who knows how it works. So I can just tell you in my own case, you know, I don't usually talk about this, but having been going through a divorce during this time, and you know, my ex's lawyer keeps saying, well, you're doing probates, you must be getting paid. I'm like, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
Go talk to one of the judges in the probate court. They'll tell you I get paid when it's done. You know, like,
Right.
well, what are you getting paid? I'm like, the judge decides. You know, that's just part of how it works. But
Yeah.
like I said, I don't think most people understand that, and so it looms like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. But then paying for professionals who do, where's that money coming from, right? So
Yeah.
I can understand that creates a lot of anxiety.
It did, absolutely. And there was a point where, because I know you were asking about how what was our first thought, and then how did kind of everything go from there. Max ended up flying out to California because we of course wanted to be there. We were hoping that we could be there for the funeral, and ended up, I guess, several weeks for it to actually happen. But Max flew out almost immediately, and then our children and I followed. And there was a meeting that Max attended with Michael and several other professionals as well, to sit down and be like, okay, what do we have? What information do we have? And where do we go from here? And I think once Max had sat down, I would say arguably that meeting helped kind of like settle us, because we had like a better, or at least Max, I wasn't there, I couldn't attend, I was flying in that day. But I think when Max and I talked on the phone about it afterwards, it's things we were like, okay, I think we've got a better handle. We're understanding now that we've talked to Michael in person. We've got a couple other professionals that were helping us, and that again, his father knew, and it made it easier to go from there. And I think after that is then when Michael started, I think he reached out to you, Kevin, to be our fiduciaries.
Yes, because he was bringing up, just like, do you want to be the administrator of the estate, or do you want to hire someone? And I know my mother was pushing for me to do it because it would save a lot of money, but at the same time, I don't have that experience or skill set to do that. And, you know, one wrong move can cause a lot of issues. So I told Michael, was like, hey, I'm not comfortable doing it. Can we find someone? And sure enough, that was you.
That was me. Yeah, I remember getting it was either a call or an email now. Yeah. So, you know what? Let's take a quick break for a sponsor you will recognize, and we'll be right back.
Okay.
When life brings unexpected changes, managing inherited property shouldn't add to your stress. Magnum Properties specializes in probate and trust real estate management. We handle the complexities while you focus on what matters most. From property maintenance to tenant relations, from legal compliance to maximizing value, we're your trusted partner through every step. Magnum Properties, Inc., turning property challenges into peace of mind. Call us today at 213-264-4396 or visit magnumprops.com. Yeah, so we've been talking about the company that your father-in-law left behind. That's Magnum Properties, which and a test of fire really has learned how to deal with dealing with properties and going through probate, and especially frankly a fairly chaotic probate, especially in the beginning. So yeah. So now, what was it like to have this guy you've never met, right? Know nothing about, i.e. me, right? Brought in to handle this. And I don't mean like, oh, Kevin, you did a great job. it's nice, but I'm just, what was it like to have a stranger? What was going on in your head? Like, okay, well, now we've got this strange guy who basically has, cognizance over all of this money that, we're supposed to inherit at some point. Talk to us about that, if you would.
Honestly, it was nerve-wracking. Here's someone that has the keys to everything at this point and can do anything he wants to do, even though, it's supposed to be for the beneficiary of the estate. But at the same time, like, you get a bad apple and they can do a lot of damage. So I was very nervous at first, but then I remembered, hey, this is someone that Michael Abramson recommended. And my dad, knowing my dad, he wouldn't he wouldn't work with someone he didn't trust. And the fact that him and my father had worked for 30 years together says a lot. So I kind of just had a chain of trust at that point and said, well, if my father trusted Michael and Michael trusts this new administrator, then I need to put my trust into him as well. Because if I don't, then we're not going to have a good relationship and we can't move forward with this estate.
Michael also sent us your bio, Kevin, and we saw your website, and I think it also helped when we saw that you were prior DOD, and so we're like, okay, we'll probably work well with him since we all have that experience as well. We can understand when some of the jargon the military speaks, and I think the humor that comes with military, because as I was mentioning previously, having worked across in DOD, state, USAID, I loved working in DOT because of the humor. I feel like that we could all relate upon. And so I knew, and Max and I do have that humor and can be very sarcastic at times. Not in a mean way, as you've mentioned. So I to be honest, I think that helped too. Because I don't remember if Michael only recommended you, Kevin, or if he showed us. I don't think so. I think
you were the only one.
I think unless there was some, I don't think so. Because
I don't know who didn't recommend him. Yeah,
there were, because I know Kevin.
It didn't put you off that I was Navy and you were Army.
we had been beating you in football lately, so it's fine.
Okay. Ouch.
Yep.
No, I'm sorry. What were you going to say, Brianna?
I'm blanking now because of course Max had to make that Army Navy.
People.
Right. No, so I think what I'm confusing with when it comes to whether if we saw other bios and who we might pick, I'm confusing that was when you actually helped us and you, as you looked at the estate and you were saying, okay, I think you're going to need like financial advisor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's where I'm confusing when we're going through a couple of bios who might work best for us. So yeah, I think the fact that Michael Abramson recommended you, and we knew Max's father had such a long-standing relationship with him, and the couple times that we chatted with him directly after Max's father passed, and we could tell that he was professional. We just can't. I think the key here for us is we are relying a lot off of Max's father's trust and knowing he was a good businessman, and so he was doing something right with the estate, right? Yep. So we are doing our best to follow in his shoes, to try to make the right decisions. And so we said, okay, we need to trust and that we know we can't do this ourselves. We need someone to help us, and we're not going to immediately like cut someone down as soon as they start working for us, because we don't know the business either. So I think that's kind of how everything came about in the beginning, and our trust. And then of course we've been, as you mentioned, we've been working with you for the past year and a half. And so trust has continued to be built that last year and a half. But it was in the beginning, it was very confusing, nerve-wracking. We didn't really understand it. We didn't know what to expect. And so I do feel like in the beginning, when you were first reaching out to us and sending us reports, we were very quiet because we just didn't know how to respond. Yeah. If we could ask the questions, what should or shouldn't we ask? And so now we've built up that relationship more. And so we are more open and free with our questions. And yeah, it's helped, because in the beginning we were just like deer in the headlights. I have no idea what's going on. I don't know what to do.
it's interesting because I send out weekly reports on all of the cases that I handle, and I was talking with somebody maybe, I don't know, a couple of months ago, and this is a lawyer who does a lot of probate work, and he's like, "Wait, you do what?" I said, "Yeah, I send out a weekly report on all, like, so people involved know what's going on." He's like, "Why do you do that?" Like,
So
I don't know. It seems like good for people to know what's going on, right? He's like, "Oh, it sure makes a lot of sense. I wonder why other administrators don't do that." I'm like, "I don't know." Said, if I'm doing something stupid, I'd rather know about it sooner than later.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I think that those weekly reports have really helped us keep us calm too, and because then we have an idea of what's going on, where the estate's at. I feel like you would be receiving a lot more frantic phone calls from us if we weren't getting those emails. So I those have been very helpful for us, and even just again, because we didn't truly understand the expanse of the estate, and so even for us just to keep up with it and have a better understanding with it, and start to memorize some of these different properties and such. So it has been extremely helpful having those, and it also opens up it makes it easier for us to communicate with you too. So I do appreciate all of those. It's just been helpful all around.
Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was maybe we'd been into the administration, the estate, for maybe a couple of months, and we had kind of it was a virtual meeting, but I know, both of you were there. Obviously, I was there. Michael, I think our real estate broker, Bill Gross, was there. There may have been one or two other people there. And we kind of went through, by then I had at least somewhat gotten my arms around the estate. As I'm sure you can appreciate, when somebody dies intestate, it's a much more complicated task to understand the extent of the holdings and all of the issues, because nothing's defined. And so it's a matter of, it's really like being a detective and figuring it all out. So we had this big powwow. And, I think I made a couple of remarks that probably would only be said in a staff meeting of a military unit. Right? And the three of us are laughing, and the other people in the meeting are kind of like,
yeah.
So,
again,
pretty natural to me, right?
Yeah. I thought it was great. I thought it was hilarious. But again, I did notice a big difference between the humor when I was at State Department USA as compared to when you're in DoD. I don't know why, because not that I didn't love working for state and USA, I absolutely enjoyed it, but there is something different about the humor. And that is exactly the humor Max and I have. So.
There's a certain authenticity to it. And, I think because of just the military milieu, where, look, you don't even have to be in a combat zone for bad things to happen, right? Mm-hmm. So you sort of you're living in that environment, and I think the closest thing I've found to it is when I used to listen to my ex talk to other people in the medical profession. Some of the things they would say would be like, "Wow." I'm glad you're not working on me right now. Yeah. My ex used to tell me she liked working in PACU because she liked her patients comatose. Right? That seems pretty harsh to me, but on the other hand, I can hear it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You'll get a giggle from us, not like a.
Yeah. I say military humor is kind of in that same vein, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and to put things in context a little bit without getting into specifics, we're talking about an 8-figure estate here. So it's a large estate. So as you start to get your heads wrapped around what the estate is all about, what the major issues are, what was going on for you at that point? What were your concerns? How did your outlook start to change right? As we got into, you know, understanding, what the major issues were and the extent of the estate.
I think, well, even a little bit before that, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. Even before once we finally understood it, we initially were going back and forth, particularly on the business, on whether we wanted to keep it running. And so I think once we got a better understanding of the estate, we did initially decide to push through and say, no, we think we'll keep going, rather than like liquidate everything. And then once we got a better understanding and our hands around the estate, I think that further confirmed for us that we think it would be good to keep the business open, keep pursuing other real estate and the property management and whatever it might be. But from there, and you said like specific what we plan on how we continue to go forward from here, or
I'm just wondering, how did your thinking, you've talked about how you're thinking toward, retention or sale of assets changed. How did your outlook about just the whole situation change? Or did it, maybe I should ask, did it change? And if so, how did it change?
Oh, I mean, it's just that, like, I think at first there was some consideration to get rid of things like the company, but to me, it didn't seem beneficial because it did generate profit. And also, I didn't want to leave Veronica and Letty high and dry. And as things progressed, we found out how large the estate was. I think our moods definitely improved because we realized that we'll be able to provide our children a good lifestyle and to help support them with their own ventures as they grow older. So as time got on, we got used to what the estate were. We had a better understanding what the estate was. We definitely had a lot more positive outlook on the final outcome that is to come. It's just, it's still a little overwhelming at times though.
It is, especially as we're still in active probate and trying to close things off. I mean, I think a big part of it is actually the question of, we never really know when it's actually going to be complete because court systems and the IRS and all that fun stuff. So that I feel like we get that question actually as of lately quite often is, well, when are you do you have the estate, or when is probate going to close? And our answer is, we also for a while had been wanting to move. We were staying in this area because of our jobs. Of course, we're right outside of Washington, D.C. But now with the inheritance of the estate and it being, of course, over in California, it kind of broadened our horizons to say, okay, well, do we really need to stay here? I mean, we're unhappy. We've got a lot of medical stuff going on, and we have been wanting to get out of the area. So it did broaden the horizons. We've been talking about moving, which has been great for Max's health needs, for our daughter's health needs. And so it did like broaden the horizons and let us open our eyes to possibilities. But with that, of course, it comes with additional making sure that we're still continuing to do right by the estate, not making any poor financial decisions.
Yes, that one.
So it's been a lot of it's a different type of thinking too. I think this is a conversation we had with you a while ago, but I feel like our focus has changed, and particularly in the beginning. And I'm sure you can attest to this too, Kevin. Like my question was always financially, like, how much does this cost? Are we going to be okay? I'm very much a penny pincher. I've grown up that way my whole life because I've had to be, and so it has been a different change of mindset. And of course, we're always used to doing things just as the two of us making financial decisions. But now we realize, oh, well, if we're going to make any big financial decisions, we really have to bring in the experts and say, okay, this is what we're planning on doing. Could affect the estate. It's been like a massive mindset change all around, and we do constantly have to remind ourselves. And I think there are a couple of times too where I sent some emails I was like, I don't know if I'm sending it to the right person too, because still I don't fully understand everything. So this is my question. I think it goes to you, but it turns out it actually should have been asked to someone else type of question, whether it was, financial advisor or our CPA or whatever it may be. But it's definitely been we've definitely grown a lot. It's been a change, and we would say, of course, for the better. But it's been interesting taking on a business that Max had a little bit of knowledge of when he was a kid. He would help his dad out,
sort checks,
sort paperwork. Yeah. But it's definitely a massive undertaking, and one that we know that we can't do ourselves.
So, and we've talked about this, I think, on a number of occasions. And by the way, feel free to decline to answer this question. But the reason I'm asking it is because I think it will be of particular interest to the people watching the show and who will watch it. The two of you have, I think, about as great a marriage as I've seen among people. And you're talking about, a former military chaplain who it seemed like half of my work was, dealing with marriages that were falling apart. And it seemed, but I think the two of you, each of you has a different approach, a different way of dealing with, these kinds of issues. And if you're up for it, would you share some thoughts on the different perspective that each one of you has, and how you work together as a married couple, to differing. By the way, I don't think it's bad to have different perspectives. I think that's actually good, right? Because if two people are seeing things the same exact way, almost inevitably they're missing seeing something. On the other hand, when people have different perspectives, that is, grounds for conflict, and conflict can, especially in a very difficult situation, can be hard to resolve. So, if like I said, if you're up for it, would you share some thoughts on that? Silence. No, Kevin.
Well, I feel like also our computer is apparently dying, so there might be a little bit lag going on. Sorry about that, Kevin. We thought we charged it. It's okay. But to answer your question, if you can hear us now, this is for anyone that's close to us knows that we are
very different,
like exact opposites in almost everything that we do. And we've been married 10 years. And so I think we have figured it out. We understand there's no changing each other. We know this is how we are. This is how we work. But it's funny because I am very much the type of person that I am very detail oriented. I have to know, I cannot, if a question, I'm probably gonna come back to you with like 5 questions before I make a decision. Because I need to know everything. I need to understand it, or I'm not going to sign something. I'm not going to make a decision. Whereas Max is I feel like when it comes to like the military officer type view,
I can make a decision with 0 input.
Yes, he can make a decision at the drop of the hat. And so it has been, and I think I've really enjoyed, if anything, it has really helped us as we work together and finding the way that we work together. Because, of course, early days in our marriage, right? We would just be like, we would tell everyone we cannot work together. There's no way, if we were ever in an office together, it would be like nuclear bombs. It would be awful. But now I actually think that we would work positively because we've actually figured out, we know. And in the beginning, it would come off a lot. I think for Max, when I'm asking all these questions, it came off attacking. But it's just like, no, that's just the way my mind works. I'm so indecisive. I can't make a decision unless I absolutely have all of the facts. And then I can understand and feel good that I'm making a good decision. Whereas Max is very good about making that drop of a hat decision. He's like, this is the question, and you provided me these 2. All right, this is the better option. This is what we're going to go with, and that's just how it's going to be. So there are also times though where I over-explain, as I am currently doing. I over-explain, and Max can get to the point very quick. So there have been times where, like, if I'm sending an email, it'll depend on the email too, right? I remember we were doing this for something. I think we were responding to one of the emails or something, and Max, it was like, I want to say like 2 sentences.
I wrote 2 sentences.
He wrote 2 sentences response, I think, back to you and Bill. And I was like, Max, this does not show that you've done any of your homework, that you've, like, I know you've been like hours on the computer researching this, but this came across that way. So like, sat down for 30 minutes and I was like pulling answers out of him. Like, okay, but why did you get to this? Okay. So vice versa, right? If we need like a quick answer, if I'm sometimes I'll just look to Max and I'll be like, you answer it, because I'm gonna give like a 2-hour response and he'll be like, this is what happened, this was the result. Yes, there are a ton of details out and it's killing me to not say these details, but
in my mind, he asked for an opinion. That was my opinion.
Yeah.
He didn't need to know. They didn't need to know the reasons why I came to that conclusion. Just that's the conclusion.
Yeah, so it is pretty interesting when, like we say, we have our group phone calls and I'm going to be the one with like the 5 questions, and Max, and then once we get those 5 questions, Max and I will look at each other. We'll be like, okay, we agree. But it is.
I have to say, there is a clear male-female divide here, because we're we meaning the members of the team taking care of you. We're perfectly happy to get a 2-sentence response. As long as we're clear on what you want, we're off, right? And the Bill especially, I would say 90% of the emails I get from Bill are maybe 1 line. It's like, we can all sort of, shortcut each other because we've known each other for a long time. But having grown up around women and like having to deal with my mother, my 2 sisters, my older sister's very best friend, my aunt, right? It's very different. There's a whole context that has to be set. Now, obviously, these are not every woman is like this, and not every man is like this, of course. But in general, the explanation and the working through to the decision is at least as important as the decision itself. Whereas, generally speaking, with the male clients I have, it's like, okay, here's what we're gonna do. Go.
Yeah, and as you just kind of mentioned there, Kevin, there are a lot of perspectives here. Again, we're looking at these states where I do have some background, tax work, CPA, as well as property management. I did work for a property management company only for 3 months, but I have like a little bit of knowledge here and there on that, whereas Max has IT background, a little bit of background with actually working at his father's business when he was younger. So there are different perspectives that both I have gone to him times and said, look, this is what my head is thinking about. This is where I'm coming from, but I'm curious to see what your thoughts are, to see if there's anything. And there have been quite a few times where he's thought of something where I was like, oh, I didn't even think about that. I didn't look at it from that viewpoint. And I'm glad you said that, because that actually does kind of change my mind now. So it's just the different backgrounds that we come from. It's been very helpful and interesting on how we work through these issues together.
All right, we're going to take another quick break, and we'll be back to Probate and Trust TV, your curated source for the most useful and insightful content on estate planning and trust and probate administration, featuring standout professionals like Bill Gross, Paul Bravelet, James Cunningham, and yours truly. Whether you're a lawyer, accountant, real estate professional, or working on your own succession plan, this channel helps you quickly find the clearest, most practical content YouTube has to offer. Subscribe now to Probate and Trust TV. Spend more time learning, less time searching. Take this with you. Sorry. I'm just still laughing. can't cook.
Not together.
That may be the funniest thing you've ever said, Max. And that is totally within the military ethos. Right? You're sending a guy off to war, and the last thing you tell him is something sort of, not pleasant about him. So, oh gosh,
I think we both.
I didn't think this episode was going to have so much laughter in it. To be honest, I wasn't prepared. So, we're, to paraphrase, I think it was Winston Churchill. We're definitely, certainly at the end of the beginning, if not the beginning of the end of the administration of the estate that you're inheriting. And interestingly enough, I think, Brianna, it was you who mentioned a few minutes ago, the most frequent question you get is, when is it going to be done? And I get the same question, not from the two of you, because we've discussed the sort of unknowability of things like, how long is the IRS going to take? In fact, I just had a conversation with the probate referee for the estate on that subject last Friday, and he has evidently handled a number of matters in front of the IRS, and I was giving him just a little bit of background so we could understand what it was we needed him to do, and I said, we're going to go through at least a level 1 audit, and then who knows after that. And he's like, oh yeah, you got to wait. We used to go yet. You could hear him kind of going, taking the breath in and the breath out, right? And this sort of indeterminate nature of that. Mm-hmm. So anyone who's been involved to any extent with probate administration knows that it's a fool's game to predict, when something's going to be done. So talk, if you would, a little bit about how you're dealing with the uncertainty, because I think that's not an easy thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not, but at least for me, the way I try to deal with it is I just forget about it. Because I can't sit there and think about it. If I do, I will go crazy.
Yeah. And
that would be bad for everybody. So for me, at least, I just forget about it. I know that things are going great, and I focus on my day-to-day, dealing with the girls, dealing with the family. And that's what I put my mind out to. And I think I'm doing great.
I think it really helps knowing the team that we have and being able to trust in that our team is working on the ground while we're here, kind of hands up in the air. Nothing we can really do at this point in time. We know that our team is working really hard. We have built a great team of knowledgeable professionals, and that we do trust. And so I think that really helps, especially because we know we message our team and say, hey, what's going on? We're kind of concerned. We're also kind of thinking about doing this. We're thinking about moving. We would like to move, but we also don't want to make bad financial decisions. If state's still in probate, we still don't know what's going on. So I think relying upon that team and their professional expertise has been really helpful to really settle our minds, because otherwise we would be stressed out. We know this is coming, but we don't know when, and we don't know what we should do until then, if we should start moving and changing up our lifestyle the way that we would change our lifestyle. But I think in the interim, it's the reliance upon the team that has kind of helped us work our way through this.
So kind of a follow-up question, and to the extent that you can answer this, how has this whole situation affected your children, your girls? They're both young. They're both under 8 years of age, as I recall, or 10 years of age anyway. So
7 and 5.
Sorry.
They're 7 and 5.
7 and 5. Okay, yeah. For some reason, I was thinking 8 and 6. So I'm a year advanced. How, if at all, how has this whole situation affected them? I would assume that that's kind of, in a way, topmost in your minds, right? I know you to be extremely loving, caring, supportive parents, not smotheringly so, but like genuinely, like parents used to be, right?
Yes.
In a good way. And I would think that this was, a big concern for you. So
Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, family comes first. I feel like that's our motto, our most important. And so we did, looking at this opportunity that we had, we decided to focus, as of right now, while our kids are still very young, to focus on them. Particularly, one of our children has a chronic illness and has to attend quarterly doctor's appointments and might have a lot of hospital stays and a lot going on. And so we wanted to focus on our children. Oldest has changed in that we have pulled them out and we're homeschooling them now that we have that opportunity to do so. And it helps with the health aspects. I think it helps with Max and I previously being working family, both of us working full time, and especially in the DC area, you're commuting a lot. I want to say that most days we were gone 12 hours, 10 to 20, when it comes to commuting to get where we actually work to, the traffic that's awful, being at work all day, and then coming home, we're exhausted, and we had no time for family. So this has really honestly given us time to actually enjoy time spent with our family and try to focus on them and what's best for them. And also allow us to decide what their futures, a different type of future for them, I guess, than we would have initially thought about while we were limited with working constantly, commuting one place to the next, exhausted, and then like we might be able to spend weekends with them, and that was it. So it has, our agreements after because we've had a couple sit down chats, like, okay, well, what is life going to look like for us, to be important to us, what are our priorities, and family is always first. And so I think we do now make a lot of our decisions based on primarily our children, and us and our health and our lifestyle too. Knowing that that commuting lifestyle, and we were not as healthy as we could have been. So we are also trying to factor ourselves back into that. And being parents of young children, focus is always on them, not on us, right? So it's been an interesting lifestyle change, I would say. It definitely has been a lifestyle change.
We're also looking into the future too for the kids, because we are coming into a new lifestyle. I want to ensure that they're going to just say, hey, we have money, we can do whatever we want. We're trying to avoid that. We're trying to say, when they grow up, like, hey, even though we have this, we still have to learn basic life skills. We need to, get a job to like understand things. But
ways that they contribute to the community, give back to the world, and be good citizens. That's actually, speaking of Kevin, this is one of the topics that we were planning. We have a meeting scheduled with you coming up, and this is one of the topics we're going to talk to you about and ask for your expertise and your opinion on ways that, because this is such a change for us, and we know this is going to be huge for them too. We still want to do right by them, and we don't want to. We want them to understand that they have that safeguard, but that doesn't mean that you can blow through life. That they really need to be involved in, and despite what their younger minds may think as they are growing up. So it's a huge lifestyle change, and that we are still trying to figure out ourselves, but I think again goes back to that we really are relying upon our team and professional opinions and even friends and reaching out and saying, you know, we are still trying to raise good citizens, good kids. It's
So, and interestingly enough, it was a discussion I had with Michael that led me to want to talk to you about some of those issues, because we are in a different phase now, right? And these questions, I think, loom larger. I can tell you, as someone who grew up in a very wealthy community. I was not wealthy. My family was very middle class, but Santa Barbara, California, and its next door neighbor to the south, Montecito, very, very, very wealthy community. So I grew up around a lot of kids who came from very wealthy families. And in my professional life, I've been around a lot of people who, you know, grew up in wealthy families. And it's interesting because there are the kids who they got the message that, like you said, Brianna, doesn't matter what your bank account is, you still have to be a good citizen. And there are the kids who think, oh, mom and dad have a big bank account.
Mm-hmm.
Happy times are here to stay,
Yes.
right? And really live completely dissipated lives. And it's a shame. So, you know, how that's handled, I think it's difficult, and there's no, you know, sure path. But I think everybody working with you needs to be engaged on working on these issues in the way that you see them, to make sure that it's a unified effort. And so that's been my concern for the last, I don't know, kind of, I guess, kind of since you guys were out here and we got to meet face to face, and I got to meet your girls, and you know, really somehow that brought that next aspect, I don't know, more to the forefront, I guess is the best way to say it. So do you see differences in the way, I don't know, they behave and the way they look at life? They are so young. So you know, I could imagine a lot of this is just sort of above their heads. But on the other hand, I don't know, maybe not. They're pretty sharp. At least that's my assessment.
I think they're still the same old girls we had.
Yeah, and I think we're working hard to raise them to be the same old girls as they were before. I don't think they're the only difference that they're, and actually when I was out walking your dogs this morning and I was with the girls, we were doing a training walk for our puppy this morning. Oh, because I said we have a meeting today, just so you guys know, and then we'll do a nice painting activity afterwards. But we're like, please let mom and dad have this meeting. And her response to me though was, oh, you're always doing meetings. And I was like, but we're not though. Like, we're not compared to when we were gone for 12 hours a day. This is like nothing. So if anything, the only thing she's really noticed is that we're going from homeschooling, being with them the whole day, and then being like, okay, actually we do have a meeting. It's very important. You now you've met who we're meeting with, you understand this. So I don't think they've really, other than that, noticing the kind of the difference in our working lifestyle, they haven't noticed much. And I think we're doing that on purpose. I mean, this is actually, I'm looking at Max because this isn't something we haven't really discussed, honestly. We haven't told them, hey, we're coming into this big estate. Hey, this financially things should be easier from now on. Easy. But it's I think they're too young to really understand.
By the way, my advice is, when you tell them, hey, we're coming into this big estate and you're going to have to go to work for the company it owns, like right now. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
We'll get it.
There might have been notes, I think Max went for,
yeah, just put him to work now, you know. Yeah. Well,
I mean, we're doing things when it comes to like work around the house and stuff like that. we do have like a shore chart. And we're like, this is, your work, this is our work, but your work has to get done, or helping us with gardening outside and or like cleaning around the house and stuff. We have set up, we're starting to, at least for their appropriate age, things that they can work on, and they have like a checklist of things that they do every day. So I don't know, maybe eventually we'll start adding in some actual work
Sorting
someday.
checks.
Sorting checks. Let's see.
Veronica and Letty will be happy to have them. So
Yes.
yeah. You can ship them out here for the summer. It'll be summer camp at Magnum Properties.
At Magnum.
They have something to look forward to now.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about from you.
Oh, well, they'll hear California and they'll go, oh, Disneyland?
Right, yeah. Well, we can do it. We can do a, we'll do a day at Disneyland, and then back to the salt mines, Okay, we'll do one at Universal as well. One day at Universal, one day at Disneyland. Work the rest of the time. Okay, there you go.
Sounds good.
Whatever the two of you want, we'll work it out. Well, we ended up talking for an hour, which most of the shows don't go for an hour. So I think we could go for another 2 or 3 hours, if nothing else, just joking with each other. But I'm not sure people would find that part as interesting. So I really want to thank. I really want to thank both of you for coming on the show and sharing what is, after all, a somewhat personal matter in your life. I've never done a show like this, bringing the heirs or the beneficiaries' perspective to this whole process. And I think that it's hard. Those of us who administrate estates, we have in our head what we need to do. Right? It's all in here, and we know we're the professionals. But the reality is that we work to serve you, people like you. And to better understand your experience really means that we can do a better job for our clients and for working with our fellow team members. So I really think there's tremendous value in what you did. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks so much for having us, Kevin. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. So I'm going to have you hang tight. We'll go off live in just a moment. I'm just going to do a quick wrap up here. So thank you so much for joining us today. And we've got some live viewers who tuned in. It's always a treat. I hope you were laughing as much as we were. So, and if not, leave a comment. Why weren't you laughing at us or with us anyway? Real quickly, tomorrow at 10 a.m. is my show, Business Lessons from the Military. That's Pacific time, of course. And then Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time is my show, Business Lessons from the Military. So we have a couple more times to be together this week. And then a week from today, I'll be back for the next episode of Trust and Estates Weekly. So again, thank you so much for joining us. Max, Brianna, thank you very, very much for being my guest today. And that just leaves me to sign off as I always do, reminding you that, Marie, darling, you are my belle. You know you are. Okay? Courage at all times, my friends.